All right, let's see what we can get accomplished here. Uh, histology is the study of tissues. Cells come together to form tissues. Tissues form organs. Organs form organ systems. Organ systems form organisms. So we're looking at this second layer in the hierarchy of life. And so what are your types of tissues? There's 4 types: epithelial, connective, muscle, and nervous. Epithelial is your coverings. If it's on the outside, it's epithelial. If it's covering, it's epithelial. Then you have muscle, which is for contracting, and you have nervous, which coordinates. And the thing that connects the epithelial to the muscle is connective. That's how I view it. So your epithelial, it's lining, it's covering, and it's not just the outside that you can see, but it's the internal coverings. It lines the body cavities, it covers the glands, it covers the organs. It's in the lungs. It's in your joints. Epithelial tissue is covering everything. Connective is the supportive. It connects and such. It protects and all. It's storage. So your bone, you store calcium. Your fat, you store energy. Your blood is protective, and it also supports. It carries oxygen to the cells and waste away from the cells. It has the white blood cells, which is your immune system with the antibodies and the immunoglobulins, other forms and such that are for protective. So your bones support, your bones protect. They protect your skull, your brain, protect your lungs and such. So protective. Muscles only do one thing: they contract, and by doing that, they move things. So when it's attached to your skeletal system, your bones act as levers, and it moves you around. When it contracts in your heart, it's propelling the blood. It moves the blood around. And in your diaphragm, when it contracts and some other ones contract, it helps you breathe. It helps you. It creates a low pressure that air moves into your lungs and such. And then when you relax, it just recoils and expels the air out. So muscle is for movement. And then the part that coordinates everything, that makes everything work, makes you work, is your nervous tissue and such. So epithelial, when you look at these, you have to go back to the beginning embryo and really get back to the beginning zygote. So when sperm united with egg, you get a single cell with all of your DNA in it, a single cell called a zygote. Zygote, zygote. That then undergoes mitosis. And this mitosis takes that single cell, makes 2, makes 4, makes 8, on and on and on. It eventually gets to a stage to where the cells, which is a big mass of cells, they start to become different. They differentiate. And you get these 3 embryonic germ layers, or these 3 embryonic tissues. And it's the ectoderm, the mesoderm, and the endoderm. Ecto is outside, meso is middle, endo is inside. And so we look at the tissues, the 4 tissues, and we ask where were they derived from? And your epithelial tissues has its origin in all 3. Connective and muscle is mostly mesoderm. And your nervous system is such as mostly ectoderm, with the exception of your support cells in the nervous system, known as these glial cells and all. So that it's good to know the origin, where they come from. So epithelial, closely packed. They're anchored to a basement membrane. That basement membrane has a glue layer, a bottom glue, if you will, called a basal lamina. Composed of this glycoprotein, and then there's this reticular lamina composed of collagen, and that is the basement membrane that kind of the epithelial tissue set on. And then we name the epithelium based upon the shape, the structure and the arrangement and such of the cells. So when we say the shape of the cell, there's three shapes. There's a flat, there's a box, and then there's a column, if you will. So flat or squamous, the cube, the box is cuboidal, and then the tall round ones, columns and such, are columnar. Then their arrangement. If it's a single layer, it could be a single of flat, a single of boxes, a single of columns. We use the word simple. If they're multi-layered, we use the word stratified. Now there's an example of some columnar cells. Because of the way their nuclei are arranged, they look like they are layered, but they're not. So it's a false appearance. So we say pseudostratified. If the tissue is stretchable, we say it's transitional. And if it contains cilia, we just tell that it contains cilia. We say that it's ciliated. So when we look at this, the simple squamous and such is very thin. It's in the membranes. It's in the walls of the capillaries. It lines the inside of the heart. It's in the lungs. It creates the alveoli, the alveolar sacs of the lung. So that's simple squamous. Simple columnar is where you need to absorb materials or secrete materials. So like in your intestines, your stomach, your small intestine, your large intestine, those would be simple columnar. And the mucus cells, the goblet cells, are there, and they secrete mucus and such. Where you need protection from abrasion, from bumping into things, or things being rough, you need layers. So that's the stratified squamous. So that's mostly your outer epidermis and such, and certain body cavities. And then where you have your respiratory tract. So I just use my nose. Back of your throat, going into your trachea, down to your lungs, you have this ciliated lining, which is a type of it's a protective measure and such. And so since they contain cilia, in this class we will call that the pseudostratified epithelium. We mentioned the stretchy ones there. Your bladder, your ureters, that's part of your genital system. Connective tissue, living cells in a non-living matrix. Living cells in a non-living matrix. And you also see there it's called an extracellular matrix, and also you identify the matrix, you know what connective tissue you're looking at. So most of this is mesodermal. So that's that embryonic tissue, this mesenchyme, this mesodermal. The matrix can be loose, can be dense, it can be specialized, they have certain fibers in it. It can be a semi-solid, it can be a fluid, or it can be a hard substance, and all of that. All of those things tell us where it's kind of found, what its structure is, what its function is in the human body. When talking about connective tissue, we use this as an example to name cells. And when you look at the name, if you can break the name apart, it tells you what it's doing. So if it is an active cell, you kind of see the ending blast. If it is a mature cell, you kind of see the ending site. And then there's a specialized one in the bone that actually eats things or breaks things down, and that is a clast. So you have fibrocytes, also fibroblasts, because they produce fibers. Osteocyte, osteoblast. An osteoblast would be one that is actively making bone. A chondrocyte, chondroblast. A chondroblast is one that's making cartilage. And the one that you find within the bone family, the bone cell family there, the osteoclast, is a cell that actually chews bone up. It breaks bone down. Your bone is a storehouse of calcium, and your body needs calcium, so it puts calcium in by building bone, takes calcium out by breaking down bone. Some other cells that are found in this connective tissue line, the mast cells. Mast cells are found in your dermis and in your epidermis, and they are specialized cells that will respond to attack, if you think of it like that, by releasing histamine. Histamine and heparin. These are substances that make the cells loose, leaky, and makes the blood thin. Part of the inflammation. You get bit by a mosquito, you get a histamine reaction in that area where you were bit because a foreign tissue came in and your body reacted. Very similar to a white blood cell known as a basophil. Basophils do the same thing within the circulatory system in that they release this histamine. Macrophages, these are your white blood cells, and they're found in various areas, not just in the blood, but in other areas and all. So where you find them, we have different names of them. Dust or histiocytes, those are found in your lungs. Kupffer cells, they're found in your liver. Langerhans cells are a type of a macrophage in your skin. And then within the brain, the nervous system, we have a specialized one known as a microglia. Plasma cells, these are a type of white blood cell, and they are the ones that will then produce and secrete the antibodies that you hear about. The matrix, like we mentioned, if you can identify the matrix, you know what type of connective tissue. So if it's loose, it's areolar, a lot of fluid, a lot of gel-like space in there. If it's dense, if it's hard, if it's packed tightly together, then it's not areolar. We can look within the matrix and we can find fibers. And there's different types of fibers found in there. Collagen is one that gives it strength. Elastic cells give it resilience where it bounces back and such. But collagen is for strength. So against shearing forces or tearing forces. So many different forms of collagen fibers. Like I said, elastic gives it this recoil. Then there's another one in there known as reticular. And reticular is like an internal skeleton. Cells build off of the reticular one. So, but the elastic, stretch, come back, stretch, come back. So, but the reticular we mentioned, I just told you about. When you think about your internal organs and the shape that they have, the liver, the spleen, the heart, the stomach, they are built around these internal fibers that give a framework that the cells then build off of to give us the shape of that organ. So that's the reticular fibers. The ground substance, which makes up connective tissue, this one right here, there's water in there, and then there's other proteins in there, glycoproteins and such they call them, glycosaminoglycans. Such there's hyaluronic acid, there's chondroitin, there's heparin, but that's the protein that gives it its density, whether it be watery, jelly, or dense. And also there's other things in there. These adhesion molecules, they allow the cells to stick together and also to form the ground substance for the different types of a connective tissue. So when you look at connective tissue, you have loose connective or you have dense connective. Loose connective is areolar. Dense connective would be like your fibers or like tendons and ligaments and such. So let's stop right there.